House members introduced a bipartisan war powers resolution yesterday aiming to prevent President Trump from starting a war with Iran without congressional authorization. Senate Democrats are preparing a vote on their own war powers resolution, which could be as soon as tomorrow. While the president's role is commander-in-chief of the military, the actual constitutional authority to declare war lies with Congress. In the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 lays out the authority to declare war and fund the fighting with Congress. But despite that, presidents have engaged in military action without congressional approval or a formal declaration of war. Every single military deployment or action since World War II has been done without a formal declaration of war by Congress. The War Powers Resolution Act was passed in 1973 as a result of outcry over President Nixon expanding the Vietnam War to Cambodia without congressional approval. The law stipulates that the president must notify Congress within 48 hours after any conflict involving U.S. troops. It also requires that without congressional authorization or a declaration of war, the president must withdraw after a maximum of 90 days. Instead of a formal war declaration, every major land war has received congressional authorization, as have smaller conflicts like President Clinton's efforts to stop Somalia's civil war. Those authorizations typically have a specific set of parameters and objectives, like enforcing UN Security Council resolutions with force. In September 2001, a congressional authorization for use of military force was passed, giving the president broad powers to use force against any nations, organizations, or persons who aided in the 9/11 attacks. It has been used, and not without controversy, for decades since, as the justification for wide-ranging issues tied to the U.S.'s war on terror. There have been multiple efforts by lawmakers to repeal the measure, but none have succeeded. And for more on this, let's go to CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion. Nikole, good to see you. What's the latest on these war powers resolutions?
Well, they're kind of in a holding pattern, if you will, especially now that we're in the midst of this ceasefire. Certainly here in the Senate, Virginia Senator Tim Kaine is hopeful that his resolution, which he introduced last week, will ultimately receive a vote that would allow members of Congress to challenge the president if he chooses to use military force in a certain situation. Obviously, that has already occurred in this one involving Iran. There are some other measures in the House, including a bipartisan resolution sponsored by Kentucky Republican Tom Massey and Ro Khanna. But Massey just said recently that he may pull back on that if the ceasefire holds. Of course, there is also another resolution that was just introduced last night by a trio of House Democrats, which would require the removal of U.S. armed forces from hostilities in the region.
This classified briefing for lawmakers on President Trump's decision to bomb Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend, that was originally scheduled for Tuesday. Now the Trump administration is postponing them to later this week. So what's behind the delay, and how are lawmakers responding?
Well, at least one Senate aide told us that part of the reason for shifting these briefings to later in this week is so that, for instance, Secretary Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are able to participate. They're currently traveling with the president at NATO, but some congressional Democrats believe that these briefings should have proceeded regardless. Take a listen to what leaders Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries said about the postponement.
Now, this last-minute postponement of our briefing is outrageous, it's evasive, it's derelict. They're bobbing and weaving and ducking. Senators deserve full transparency.
Why is the Trump administration playing political games on questions of war and peace that relate directly to the safety and security of the American people?
So they believe this is an issue of transparency. In fact, a short time ago, Leader Schumer suggested that part of the reason for this delay was reports about intelligence that show perhaps Iran's nuclear program may have been set back by those strikes, but not completely obliterated, as the White House puts it. Obviously, we have not heard the administration's response to that, but our understanding, again, was that this was more of a scheduling issue.
Nikole Killion covering all the developments coming out of Capitol Hill. Nikole, thank you for that.